Congratulations to all the Indian fans. Virat Kohli has just scored his 50th ODI century, and it takes him past the little master Sachin Tendulkar's record of 49. Well, it's a monumental day for Indian and the cricket fans across the world. Absolutely. Kohli hits 50th century. Let's talk to the man who's the cheerleader of Kohli, I think the biggest one from England. Can I talk to David Brooks and get him on the line right now? David Brooks, your first views and reaction. You predicted Kohli to score big, and he scored today.
He's a man for the big occasion. What better occasion to choose than this one to break the record and to overtake the great Sachin Tendulkar? I mean, this is Kohli's second coming. You know, we knew him in his youth and his pomp, and then he had that spell in the doldrums. Now he's come back, not as captain, but as the ultimate team man. And, you know, I'm sure this milestone will mean a lot to him, but it will mean even more to him for India to lift the trophy. And I think Virat Kohli, he's under-recognised in India. We appreciate him outside India. But I think his greatness has not yet been fully appreciated. Surely this now will change after this extraordinary performance in this World Cup.
Well, absolutely. We've got stunning visuals right now from the stadium itself, where Sachin Tendulkar has given standing ovation and a very warm welcome. Tasmin Granger, what do you see on your screens right now? Can you just describe the moment, the story?
Hi, definitely. So currently, just for you to know that India are cruising. They've crossed the 300 mark as well. Not only has Kohli scored.
Well, I've got to just stop here. Another breaking is coming that he scored his 50th century. India is way past the score, and it's looking out to be at 360 par score right now. But we'll stick to the breaking news of Virat Kohli of 50th century. His coach Rajkumar Sharma earlier in the day spoke that the entire India is waiting for Virat Kohli's 50th ton, and what a way to come here. It is in the semi-final of the Wankhede Stadium. Remember, this is the same iconic Wankhede Stadium that gave fitting farewell to Sachin Tendulkar in the World Cup, where Virat Kohli took him on his shoulder and said he's carried the weight of Indian on his shoulders single-handedly for several decades, and that was his. And a couple of years later, Sachin Tendulkar said, if there's someone who can break his record, either it is Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli. Well, Virat Kohli scores his 50th century. Now we'll go back to the current score right now. Tasneem.
Currently, India on 303, still for the loss of one. We know that Shubman Gill did retire out, hurt earlier on, but he was back sitting in the dugout about 4 or 5 overs ago, actually looking padded up and ready to go back in given the chance. Well,
50th century for Virat Kohli. What a great day to come in on this. I'm going to get my guests here, but again, the biggest cheerleader, as I said. Is there any update, Tasneem? Yes, Tasneem has an update right now. Go on.
Still the likes of, they do have 8 overs left to go, but just something to highlight to you from what I said this morning, from around about the 32nd over, they have teed off, and the fact that they still have 9 wickets in hand, given that Shubman Gill will come back into bat, looking fit enough as well, sitting from the bench. With 8 overs to go, I reckon anywhere around 360 to 380 maybe. New Zealand looking at a very, very, very deep innings and some serious magical work on their part.
Before we go on to New Zealand, we will stick on to Virat Kohli right now. David Brooks, what has been your memory of Virat Kohli, the greatest ODI cricketer? Which is the one monumental moment that you have in your mind?
It's such a major milestone. It's one that he's been building up to, over his whole career. A lot of us were saying this. He should get the credit that the great Sachin Tendulkar is afforded in India. And there's always been pro and anti Virat Kohli. There's always been whispers, is he worth his place? Not always, but since he was deposed of the captaincy, since he stood down from the captaincy. And now he's saying in very, very clear terms that not only is he worth his place in this team, he is the shining jewel in the India crown. He is the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, absolutely. Roland Butcher, we are very pleased to have the former the former England cricketer, on joining us live from London. Roland, it's a privilege to have you on our show again. I just want to ask you, what do you make of Kohli, the player, Kohli, the ambassador, and Kohli, the big advertiser of the game in ODI?
Well, I think first of all, let me congratulate, Kohli on this century and his 50th. He could have only done it better if he'd done it in the final, but to do it today is fantastic. It shows what a marvelous player he has been over a long period of time. And the fact that he's been able to keep going at this level and at this intensity for so many years is testament to the quality of player that he is. He will go down as perhaps, in modern times, the greatest ODI cricketer of all times. Not to take away anything from all the other forms that he plays as well, which is excellent as well. But for me,
well, we've got, sir, you've got to forgive me. I'm getting Rajkumar Sharma, Virat Kohli's coach, live from Wankhede Stadium. Please patch Mr. Rajkumar Sharma. Mr. Sharma, you've predicted that he is a big match player, he will show his century, and you've given the biggest gift not only to India. How are you feeling, sir? Tears of joy?
Just overwhelmed me and for the whole country. And everybody is so excited and happy. I think that
Well, the jammers in the stadium, sir. Sir, I will ask you again, attempt it again for the sake of Indian fans. Your final thoughts, sir. Sir, your emotions on this particular century, the moment. Raju, sir, if you can hear us. I know it's sir, please go on. Sir, the fans want to hear your voice, sir.
Yeah. I'm sitting in the stadium only and we are celebrating. And it's a very proud moment for me especially and for the whole nation that he's broken the great Sachin Tendulkar's record.
Well, absolutely. He's not only broken Sachin's record, but he's brought joy to the millions and billions of Indian, 1.4 billions. So how do you feel this moment? Do you think it's the biggest moment in your life today?
Definitely. It has to be the biggest moment of my life, I'm in the stadium only. I'm enjoying his batting. It's really a proud moment.
So, is it the time for you to celebrate or shed a tear? You're an emotional person. You always shed a tear whenever he makes it big, and I've seen you doing that. Are you celebrating?
Yeah. Definitely, we are going to celebrate it. Big.
Well, we'll let you go with the celebration, sir. It's been a rare privilege to have you on the show. Thank you. Well, Roland Butcher. These are emotional moments for the coach of Virat Kohli, who's nurtured him for years and who looks up. Virat looks up to Rajkumar Sharma as his father. In fact, you must realize that Virat Kohli has got 2 or 3 very close-knit people that he trusts and seeks advice. Rajkumar Sharma, who's a panelist for several years now, is one of them. Well, I'll come back to you, Roland. You said final is a bigger moment to hit the big century, but today, we've done it here. Your views on Virat Kohli, the player?
Yes, I mean, to score it in the semi-finals is fantastic. I mean, he would love to do it in the finals as well. But yeah, I mean, what a great player he's been. For me, really, the fact that he's been able to maintain his fitness, his form, and his longevity over such a long period really suggests that he's an outstanding athlete and a credit to the game of cricket.
Well, Roland, just roll back the years. You've seen several talents in front of you after you've started coaching or looking at the game after your active cricket. Which are the 2-3 Indian players that you think stand head and shoulder above the others and your early memories of Virat Kohli?
Well, for me, the 3 really would be Virat Kohli, I think Sachin Tendulkar and Rahul Dravid for different reasons.
Yes.
I would say Kohli would be the best because I think Kohli took on an Indian team that was not really at the top of its game. And by its bootstraps, he has pulled that team through hell and high water to where it is right now. So he's been there all of that time. Tendulkar, fantastic player. He carried the team as a batter. But for me, really, I think Kohli has done a lot more than all the other 2. But I think those 3 really would be the three finest modern day players from India.
Well, absolutely. We have the numbers on your screen right now, and the fans can actually call in and leave a message and talk to and ask us a question about what makes this moment the most important. Well, David Brooks, you've been an admirer of Virat Kohli as much as you've been of the West Indies cricket. Tell me that moment which made you fall in love with this cricketer called Virat when you first saw him.
You know, I think it was the way in which he single-handedly revitalised interest in Test cricket in India. Yes, we all know that T20, we all love the T20 and the IPL, but it was Virat Kohli's dedication and intensity and enjoyment of the Test cricket and his achievements there, as well as in the 50 over, that really did it for me, because it was almost like he was turning the clock round and altering the course of history and saying, this is real cricket. This is a form of cricket that I love, I'm passionate about, and I'm going to communicate that passion to the whole nation. And when you see the big crowds now at Test matches, when you see his achievements in the Tests and now in the long form of the white ball competition, the 50 over, you know, we sense what he's really achieved in that he's brought so many people with him on this journey, and his approach is that of a quality batsman. I mean, and the way he builds an innings, the way he's not intimidated if he gets a few dot balls. I mean, one thinks of some of the England players in this tournament when they play out a maiden over, they then have to go crazy the next over because they feel that they're behind the rate. Virat's not like that. He'll pace his innings, and the acceleration when it comes is masterful. There's no gimmicky shots either. Yes. I mean, it's great to see improvisation. And we heard about David Gower's improvisation earlier. But when it comes to Kohli, he plays what I would call cricket shots. And anyone who has a real joy of the game, anyone who's ever played a long-form match, will know that's what that's all about.
All right, we'll go on to Tasneem right now. She's got an update right now, a little upsetting update, but nevertheless.
Definitely a little bit of an upsetting update, that is right. Virat Kohli just walks away from the crease courtesy of Tim Southee. He walks away having scored a mammoth total of 117 off just 113 balls. But one thing I will let you know, that is not just the end of Kohli's innings. By doing this, he becomes one of the third Indian batsmen to score over 600 runs in this current ongoing tournament. He's sitting at the top of the logs after the innings he's played today with 691 runs to his name. 100 runs completely clear of Quinton de Kock in second place. Again, Virat Kohli surpasses Kumar Sangakkara in scoring the most 50 international runs, reaching this total 217 times, equaling Ricky Ponting at the top of the logs as well. Again, Virat Kohli surpasses Sachin Tendulkar's record for the most 50-plus runs in a World Cup edition, having scored 850s so far. Take note, so far in this World Cup as well.
Well, I've got heaps of printouts with me which only talk about the greatness of this man. I think these papers are just the bottom lines of it, but the headline is Virat Kohli is perhaps the greatest modern day ODI cricketer. We've opened our lines for our callers to call in and express their views. We will read it out and take it on our air. But Roland Butcher, always a privilege to have you on our show. Roland, former player, if he's there with us. Roland, one thing that stands out about Virat Kohli that makes him a modern day statesman, the great player of the game, exponent that he is. One characteristic that has excited you.
Well, what's excited me about Kohli is really his determination to succeed. Right. I think most people would have thought that when he lost the captaincy, that probably would be the end of Virat Kohli. But no, he just got his head down, he's reinvented himself and continued really in the same vein that he was in before he lost the captaincy. I think, any young player who is watching this game, and even historians in the future, will realize the immense contribution that Virat Kohli has made, not just to Indian cricket, but really to world cricket. I mean, for me, he's been the consummate professional, and that's really what you want from someone with the status that he's got.
Well, who comes? you're an ardent student of the game as well. You observe things like a professor as well. Who comes closer to it in the last 10 years? Who's got the dedication, the aggression, the determination, the skill, the average and the records to back it in the last 10 years?
To be quite honest, I really haven't seen anyone in this bracket. I think Kohli very much is in a league of his own. I think there are pretenders trying to get there, but in terms of consistency, in terms of fitness, in terms of desire, in terms of success, I don't think anyone rivals him really in that department. So it's really difficult to find anyone else. Whoever you do find certainly will be number 2, not number 1.
Absolutely. You've guys, pretenders and imposters. David, that quite highlights your point that you've been making for over a year and a half on this channel, talking about the greatness of this man beyond the records, beyond the statistics. Now, tell us who in the past you think, in the past 50 years or 75 years of cricket, comes closer to Virat Kohli? Because we're trying to just find out closest to him.
I can only agree with Roland that he's in a league of his own. I tell you, one of the reasons for that is the intensity with which he plays all forms of the game. There's never an easy match where he takes it easy. I can think of other great players. I mean, Roland's talking to us from Barbados, and there's some fantastic players coming from the West Indies. But did they have Brian Lara springs to mind? But there were occasions when Brian Lara didn't try as hard as other times. I'm going to ask Roland whether he agrees with that. But sometimes you got the feeling from Brian Lara that it wasn't a big enough occasion. With Kohli, you get that intensity every time he hits the field. And the way he runs between the wickets, that hunger for every run, and the joy in which he greets his teammates' success. I like that about him too. And so in terms of not just the batter, but the contribution to the team and the status, the role he has within that team, whether he's captain or not. And he's shown that as senior pro, you can make just a bigger contribution to the team in terms of instilling that motivation and enjoyment in the other players. Because nobody wants to see a game where people are going through the motions. With Virat Kohli, you never see him going through the motions. It's always his A game. And it's the fact that he brings that to every match that he plays that separates him from the other greats, such as Brian Lara.
Absolutely. He brings his A game to the fourth. Well, these are the call-in lines that we have here for the fans who are going to leave their message, then their whatever wishes on Virat Kohli through us. We'll be more than happy to flash it on our screen. But take a step back. Let's look at this semi-final. We said it's going to be a tough thing to the team batting second. It's going to be really difficult for the bowlers to grip the ball after 30th overs, after the Duke walks in. What do you think? Let's do a recap. Tasneem, just take us through the beginning of the toss and till the 40th over. Just take us through.
Yeah, definitely. So just a few key pointers for there. We did say that this match is going to be won from the toss. No doubt in Rohit Sharma's mind this morning, winning the toss and opting to bat first. We do know that the history of this ground, of this pitch as well, tells you to say that the team batting first gets an average score and gets movement. They just have to negotiate the first 10 to 15 overs of swing and seam off this track. But later on in the evening, as the dew factor does set in, the ball does a whole lot more right up until the 15th to the 18th over. So a lot more difficult to bat in the innings as well. Starting off for them, India in their first power play went for 84 for the loss of 1, that one being just Rohit Sharma as well. And then coming back into it, it's good to see Shubman Gill stick around up until he got a cramp round about some time in the innings. But the opening partnership between Rohit and Shubman of 71 off just 50 deliveries is what probably gave Virat Kohli, I mentioned this again in the morning, it puts him in a position where he doesn't need to come out and just start swinging his arms and batting away. He paced his innings really well. If you look at it, his first 50 came off just 59 balls as well, and 4 fours in that, no sixes off his first 50. It gives him the ability to just settle into his game and not have to rush to start teeing off as well. Again, big partnership between Kohli and Shubman on 93, just off 86 balls. Again, Shubman Gill left retired. We've seen him hobble off a bit, maybe a bit of a hamstring problem at the back. But we have seen him being ready. Again, bigger partnership this time. We've spoken about it throughout this series that you need at least 100-run partnership to set your team up, basically, if you're looking to cross the 300-run mark. And that is exactly what Virat Kohli and Shiraz have done for the team. 163 runs just off 128 balls. That leaves them scoring 203 runs in the second power play as well.
Well, that was an interesting update. Well, this is a special moment for us because of Virat Kohli, because of the semi-final, but also remember we have 3 of the international players, 2 from the former era and 1 current women's cricketer with us in the studio, giving a perspective about the game of cricket, ODI, and we are very pleased to introduce Mr. Mike Selvey, the former Middlesex and England, who joins us. He's not only a former cricketer, but also he's been with The Guardian as the cricket correspondent for 3 decades. Mike, I don't know where to begin saying that we are gratified to have you on our show live, but let me ask you, we've discussed about Virat Kohli, your views on the inning, on the tournament of Virat Kohli and the player that he's come out to be in the last decade and a half.
He's a remarkable player, isn't he? I've never seen a player quite like that who can just. I mean, how many ODIs has he played now? 200 and what is it?
Yeah.
I mean, he gets 100 back one every 5 innings, doesn't he? It's quite remarkable. 50 ODI hundreds. I know Sachin got 49, and
Yes.
I mean, that in itself is remarkable. It's a street ahead of anybody else. And Virat's only just started, isn't he? He hasn't seen the shine off yet.
Well, absolutely. What do you think of his demeanor when he walks into the field? I was talking to the former Pakistan players. He says when he walks, he's got a swagger like someone you know pretty well, and you took his first wicket, the great man, Sir Viv Richards, when he made that. You want to talk us through Sir Viv Richards and the comparison between Virat Kohli, and also how did you manage to get Viv out in the first inning of his life?
Viv, probably a bit of luck to get Viv out. I mean, Butch has seen enough of that. I can see Butch there laughing. It's, I mean, Virat's got an air to him. He's got every right to be, hasn't he? You know, he's the king of India, isn't he? And he's in his element there. 60,000 people in the stadium there, and you know that's his kingdom. He
Yes.
walks out, massive acclaim, and you know, who couldn't respond to that? It's an intimidating place. So it's one of the few test match grounds where I've actually played a test match on there, and it was intimidating way back then. And I'm sure it's exactly the same for New Zealand now. You know, they know they're up against it. They're up against it when they lose the toss there. I mean, that's almost a given, isn't it? That you win the toss there, and unless you come across Glenn Maxwell in just an astonishing passage of play, you win the game. You win the toss in Mumbai there. So you know, he's in his element. He struts. He's, you know, one of the wealthiest sportsmen on the planet, I imagine, too. So he's got quite a lot to strut about, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Well, the stats for you are here, which will come on our screen soon. 219 ODIs for Virat Kohli, 50 hundreds and 72 50s. Wow. You know, in the rush of hundreds, we somewhere let go of the 50s that are so difficult to come by to even a normal, you know, a very decent bloke, you know. So I think, yes, coming back to David Brooks. David, what is your, since we are talking about the swagger, the Caribbean chin music, the calypso, the walk, what has been your memory of Roland Butcher, of course, who played for England, but he had a smashing demeanor like Sir Viv at some stage, which we see on YouTube at times, emerging.
Well, Viv had the swagger. And when Mike Selvey played his first test match, he took the swagger away for a short while because he got Viv out virtually straight away, I think. Was it an in-swinger, Mike, you got him with? I think that, Viv had the swagger. Kohli's got that same sense of presence, as you say, with justification. And, you know, some people respond to a crowd like this. When you've got 60,000 people in a stadium, some people raise their game. I can think of other players who would shrink at that, who become lesser. You know, one thinks of players I'll give you a couple of names. From England, Mark Ramprakash, Graham Hick. When there was a big crowd in, they didn't seem to do as well. They preferred to play in quieter circumstances. Virat Kohli is not like that. He's a big occasion. The more adulation he gets, the more he wants to give back. So, he is a big occasion player, and trust him to choose a World Cup semi-final to break that record of Sachin's.
Well, absolutely. Trust him to come to the big occasion. And incidentally, this is the ground where Sachin Tendulkar played his last test match, and this is the place where Sachin Tendulkar was born, in Mumbai. Well, we'll take a step back. Now, let's focus on the time that India won the toss, decided to bat, and Rohit exploded. I think, David Brooks, you've got to give us a sense of the innings of Rohit Sharma, and then I would go on to Mike and ask his view. Is this the form of a new ODI template, the modern day ODI cricket? First, over to you, David Brooks.
Well, yeah, they certainly went off like an absolute train. I mean, Rohit Sharma, whether he has a train to catch later on today, I don't know, but it certainly looked as though he wanted to get the game going as quickly as possible. And of course, the toss, yes, we know the toss was key, but you still had to make a great start. And Rohit Sharma looked in fantastic form. Then he passed the mantle on to Shubman Gill, who played a lovely, classy innings until he retired her. And so it went on. Virat Kohli then picked up the pace. Ayers played brilliantly today. It's a real team performance, isn't it, where each one is recognising their role. When Kohli first came in today, he was quite quiet. Because Gill was going like a train at the other end. And it's that playing for the team, recognising the situation, and not panicking and picking your moment to explode. That's what we've seen. In terms of the template, well, there are those who say England started this template with their approach to Test cricket. And indeed, 50-over cricket, one thinks of the 400 they scored, was it 500 nearly against Netherlands? But that's a distant memory now. They haven't done it recently. They haven't done it in this tournament. They're holding up the bottom of the table. So it's the consistency of India's performances, I think, and the consistency with which Kohli, Sharma et al. Have performed. It's 10 out of 10 now wins. Well, sorry, they haven't won this game yet. Sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. They've got a bowl against New Zealand, and just when the lights come on and it's going to start to swing, this game could be all over as a contest really quickly once Shami and Bumrah get stuck into the New Zealand openers.
Well, absolutely. We'll come to Shami and Bumrah in a while. Well, Roland, we've seen people exploding and exploding like the aggressor and the accumulator. Do you think this has become a template for a modern day cricket where 350, 360, 370 has become the pass score here? And are you happy with the way the cricket has been progressing in the ODIs? Roland Butcher, if you can hear us.
Recently, people have been talking about the death of 50-over cricket, and there have been people wanting to finish with 50-over cricket. I think what's happening in this World Cup really is testament to what 50-over cricket is all about. The quality of play, the excitement, and you cannot take away the totals that's being scored. You've got for 400, 350s on a regular basis. I would say 50-over cricket is alive and well and really should be embraced. I think the players themselves are really taking 50-over cricket now to a different level. It is not a nice game for a bowler. I can attest to that. I don't think Mike Selby would.
I'm so sorry, I'll have to interrupt you here. Another big story that has emerged. Tasmin, another century on the way, it seems. Go on.
Yes, definitely. Shiraz Iyer has just crossed the 100-run mark off just 67 deliveries. In this, he scored 3 fours and 8 sixes, thus pushing India up to 361 for the loss of 2. And they still have, I'd say 3.4 overs still to go. So maybe 380 still not enough for them. Maybe 400 on the cards at the rate that they're going.
Roland Butcher, this is what I was referring to, the modern day cricket, where the number of boundaries are far less as compared to the number of sixes hit in the match. So what would be that? 3 and 8 for Shreyas Iyer.
Yep, exactly. Shreyas Iyer has hit 3 fours and 8 sixes.
Your views now. Please continue.
Yeah, the reason for that is, I think, basically in an attempt to ensure that the shorter form of the game is more entertaining for fans, both in the stadium and around the world. I think the boundaries are certainly a lot shorter than they were in the past. And that really has helped. I mean, the players are much fitter and they're much stronger. They've got better bats. So naturally, they will clear the boundary on more occasions than they did in the past. It really is a batting game, as I said before. I don't think the bowlers enjoy really bowling too much in this modern era of big bats, quality players, short boundaries, and we mustn't forget, most of the time, very good batting pitches.
Well, exciting times for cricket, of course. Mike Selby, there has been continuous, of course, after the dismal performance of your English team. We're not getting too much into that, but there are voices to muzzle up the ODI cricket and restrict it only to World Cup. And do you call it the demise of ODI cricket? Because it's only and exclusively coming from England. What are your views on it?
I stand by Butch on that, absolutely. I think it's the purest form of the one-day game because it has a proper narrative to it. I don't think T20 cricket, for all its whiz-bang excitement, has a proper narrative to it. There's no real chance for redemption in it. You know, I can't imagine, Glenn Maxwell's won many games of T20 cricket playing like he has, but I suspect that his legacy at the end of his career will be that remarkable innings, that 200. That will be his legacy, not 40 off 20 balls against somebody in a franchise. I've always been a big supporter of it. I think way back in the day, I think ICC used a piece I wrote about it as almost as a template for trying to plead for the retention of 50 over cricket. This is not a new idea that T20 cricket should rule the world and there shouldn't be 50 over cricket. I think we've been missing a huge opportunity, and there was an imperative to try and make 50 over cricket like an extension of T20 cricket, and I think what's happened is we've seen that actually it's got more to it than that, that it is the middle ground between the long form game and the very shorter form of the game. The one thing I would say that's lacking or has lacked in this World Cup are close finishes.
Yes.
Has there been one? I don't think there's been one, has there?
Well, there was only one last over finish that we can think of, but that's a different game altogether. But I have to ask you, why are there voices coming, especially from one country, as the former World Cup champion still?
What do you mean, from England specifically?
Yes, especially from MCC.
I don't think it would be just England that sees the march of franchise cricket, not just IPL. We're talking about new franchises starting all the time. People trying to start new opportunities in T20 cricket, T10 cricket. The Olympic Games, all these things are coming in, and some, you can't put a quart into a pint pot, as they say. Or I don't know what that would be in Mexico. What would that be? That'd be, you can't put a litre and a half-litre jar. But it's you can only fit so much cricket in, and no question that T20 cricket is the money maker. It's why countries like to play. It's why South Africa are saying to their players, you can't go and play a test series in, I think, New Zealand. You've got to stay and play in our domestic competition instead. That's another issue to test cricket, but it's the same thing applies to ODIs. And you need to be able to fit everything in somewhere. I think it would be a big mistake to get rid of it. And one of the reasons, I'm sure it's been cited before, that England haven't done so well, and it's not unique to him, but it is a reason, is the lack of T20 of 50 over cricket that they actually play, because the domestic 50 over cricket competition we have has been sidelined to make way for a competition that's a spurious competition in my eyes. So that's now been relegated to what somebody once called a development competition. It's a little bit more than that. Some of the best cricket I saw, not last season, but the season before, was actually played in that 50 over competition. It was an opportunity for some younger players who wouldn't otherwise have had an opportunity to play. So it was good from that point of view. But the players who've been playing for England in this tournament have played precious little 50 over cricket, so they don't get the rhythms they haven't had the rhythms of it. They see rhythms of T20 cricket and think that it just naturally expands into 50 overs. And I think we've seen a lot of the time that it doesn't. And one of the few players actually who really gets it for England, both in 50-over cricket and in Test cricket, is Ben Stokes. Now, a lot of talk about the way England play their cricket, but actually Ben has the capability to be able to judge the situation, to play according to the situation. So, when Ben's got 100 in this competition, he hasn't got 50 or 30 balls. Ben's built an innings and then goes later on. That's how Ben plays his Test cricket now. And other players need to follow that example of him. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? But I think England's definitely suffered through a lack of preparedness for 50-over cricket specifically.
Well, we've got another update coming in Tasmin Granger. Shreyas Iyer seems to have succumbed. You want to talk about that so that I can quickly go on to Roland Butcher and talk a much greater issue right now. Yes, go on.
Yes, definitely. As you just said, Shreyas Iyer has succumbed. They were definitely teeing off him and KL Rahul. The current over already gone for just 15 runs. They're taking the game to Trent Boult and the likes of. He's been caught by Daryl Mitchell out in the deep, bowled off Trent Boult. That is, and India currently find themselves 381 for the loss of 3 wickets, with still 1.1 overs on their side.
1.1 overs, 381. What are we looking at? Are we staring at 400? Roland Butcher, one very interesting point about how India has made to the World Cup in the last 4 years since they lost tragically to New Zealand, yes, at Manchester. Well, they've got a group of 64 players in the ODIs, 50 in the last 18 months, and they played all the tournaments, all the inconsequential, consequential, important, very important tournaments around the world. And they came down to, in March, they decided they will hold on to 24 players. Now, in that 24 players were some injuries as well. Bumrah, Shami and Shreyas Iyer. They put the buffer to that, and then they go on to the World Cup announcing their team of 15 and 16, including those 3 injured players. Somehow England, is that one, A, the template, B, England should borrow a leaf out of that book and pick up and say, hey, this is what our core group is. We need to nurture it for the next cycle of the World Cup. Your views, Roland Butcher.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's how you win tournaments. I think, first of all, you identify a group of players that you want to go forward with, and then you give those players every opportunity to play as much as possible in the format that you're playing. I think that's why India are very fortunate to have so many good players at the same time. So their squad, as you said initially, can be 50, 60. Other countries don't have that luxuries. I mean, it may be only 20, but the template is still the same. If you've only got 20 good players, you do exactly the same thing. You identify those 20, you then get them playing the format as much as possible and give them the time to mature and be ready for the tournament. Something that really every international team can follow, not just India. India may do it on a bigger scale, but the rest of the international teams certainly can do that.
Well, you're the current national selector for West Indies. What is it that we should learn from India? Because they've got everything, all the boxes ticked. Your views, Roland. I know those are...
Well, I think
yeah.
What I would say that India, obviously you've got a huge population, which equates to a tremendous amount of finance.
Yes.
You need finance really to bring players from a certain level to the very top. You've got that in abundance. You've got lots of talent. The rest of the world has lots of talent. We have lots of talent in the Caribbean. What we don't have is the same finances that you have in India. We don't have the facilities and we don't have the expertise. So we have to work with what we've actually got. I am confident that West Indies are very much on the way back. We've got a lot of very good young players. We won't have as many as India, but the ones that we've got to really put them in that situation where they're playing the different formats as much as possible at the highest level. And then we'll be able to compete, as I said, with the likes of India, et cetera, et cetera. But you've got tremendous advantages, and those advantages didn't come overnight. I think India has created those advantages over the years in terms of getting their finances in place and their coaches and their sports science and everything else. That has been because I can remember India back in the 60s, the India back in the 60s, the India now in 2023 as a cricket unit is completely different. And that has been a success story in itself that, a lot of us need to follow.
Well, absolutely. In fact, today, it's an important day. It's not only the biggest match of India ODIs in a long time. Shreyas Iyer scoring one of the fastest century in the ODI World Cup with 67 deliveries century. But we are also pleased and honored to have David Garr, who's on. Do you have an update, Tasmin, before I go on to David Garr?
Yes, definitely I do. So India have just lost the wicket of Surya Kumar. And no shock here, in the last over, 5 balls left, out walks Shubman Gill back to the crease to finish it off for his team. India currently 389 for the loss of 4, with 3 deliveries to come their way.
Absolutely, we are looking at 400, but we also have Mr. David Garr, who was earlier talking to us about a whole lot of issues, but we managed to pick out a few answers for you. What do you make of the start that Rohit Sharma has provided in these years for the World Cup, especially this World Cup, David? And welcome to the show.
At the risk of having to argue or discuss this, yes, he has been outstanding, and we know how Rohit Sharma has played for quite some years at the top of the order. This is not a great time to discuss English cricket, because everything they've done for the last 8 years has rather been negated by this woeful performance we've seen over the last 6-7 weeks. But if you looked at the way England have played when they were playing well in ODI cricket, of course T20 cricket as well, then it was very much the same template. So I would argue that the template has been rewritten. All I would say is that Rohit Sharma has been more capable than virtually anyone in this tournament of actually adhering to that playbook, because when you looked at what England had before, with when Johnny Bairstow used to be in form, when Jason Roy was his partner at the top of the order, they had blistering starts. The reason they were such a good side up until the last 2 months in 50-over cricket was they had that ability to go hard at the start, to keep it going. I mean, I was there in Amsterdam a year ago, just over a year ago, and they nearly made 500. And that was because of the depth of the batting, and okay, not a great performance from the Netherlands on that occasion. But we've seen it, we've seen it for years. So let's put it this way. The template is not new, but it's working very well when it's in the hands of Rohit.
Well, according to you about this match, what according to you should have been a good score? And remember, we spoke to David Garr a little while ago. He was discussing about a good score on this pitch. Yes, David.
Sorry, I've got to laugh. I mean, a good score is always a score that wins. If you have, 340, 350, I know there have been higher scores in this World Cup, but batting first at Wankhede, that would seem to be where you've got to get to. As I look at the score right at this moment, and it's going at 7 and over with 1 wicket down. So that gives you a template, sorry to use the word again, template for where we are right at the moment. Then 340, 50 plus is on the cards, and that should be a winning score. Batting first at Wankhede in this tournament has been the best way to go about it. Higher scores, much higher average scores first innings compared to second. I know stats never tell the whole story. And New Zealand, of course, have been a side over the years that quite enjoy semi-finals against India. They've been a side that have at times chased down big targets. But if this one gets beyond measure, then even for them and their competitive spirit and their never say die spirit, it might be a task too many.
Well, that is David Garr talking to us. One little last question before we read out the tweet of Sachin Tendulkar in appreciation of Virat Kohli the Great, also Shreyas Iyer scoring, and just a last question, which is, do you think toss has an unfair advantage to the team winning the toss? Because here it was a slightly heads up as compared to the other matches. Your views, David?
I'll give you another stat. I saw something, I think yesterday or the day before, somewhere on social media, that the side winning the toss most often in the group stages was, give me a drum roll, England, and look what happened to them. Tosses, yes, we know, for instance, okay, just to use the example of Wankhede, that game that England fielded first there in 40 degrees, that was a huge misjudgment of circumstances, conditions, and the whole thing, based on experience of what looked like T20 games at Wankhede, which is a bit different. It's a slightly different time of day. You're not fielding for 3 hours, 3.5 hours in 40 degrees. So there are local conditions to be taken into account. And on pitches like Wankhede, well, it seems that piling up a big total is enough to put you in the pound seats, as we say, because once you have, even in this current era, even this modern era, once you have that, what we were talking about just now, so 340, 350 on the board, you're in a very, very good position. Every once in a while, you have a sort of freakish encounter where a side plays out of its skin and chases something down. But that is the exception rather more than the rule. So yeah, getting runs on the board seems to work.
Well, we have an update. That was David Garr. Thank you very much for joining us. Tasmin, what do we have a quick update before we move on to our other guests right now?
Definitely. So India just rounding up their innings, finding themselves on 397 for the loss of 4. 110 runs coming off the last 10 overs for them.
Well, this is what we were discussing. The composition of Indian team is go big at the first 10 overs, go big in the last 20 overs, preserve and rotate strike in the 30 overs. Why? Because our strategy, our thinking and demystifying the strategy was that India has a soft underbelly, and that is Achilles' heel is that if you go deep at 6, 7 and 8, that's where the problem begins for the Indian batters because of the composition. In the absence of Hardik Pandya, the team had to do that. Roland Butcher, what are the 3 things that West Indies cricket needs to do right now in order to come back into full force for the World Cup?
Well, I think we just need to identify the talent, which we're doing.
Yes.
As I said, you've just got to then develop that talent, keep them fully focused. There's going to be lots of challenges around because, as Mike Selvey said, you've got T20 competitions opening up all over the world. I'm sure a lot of players are going to be tempted to take that. So we're going to have to try and keep the best of our young players within the region wanting to play for West Indies, wanting to play for the badge. It's going to be extremely difficult because when there's a chance of making money in several tournaments around the world, young players will want to do that. So it's going to be difficult for us. I think it's something that we can do, but it's going to be extremely difficult.
Well, absolutely. Little difficult, but we all hope, all the fans hope and pray that West Indies cricket goes on the resurgent way because that's where the World Cup, the cricket, the charm and the romance of cricket began for most of the generation. But take a step back, go to Mike Selvey and ask him a bigger question considering he's played the game at the best levels, written about it at the highest level, and now is the best critic of the game that you could ever have. Mike, put a hand on your heart and answer this. Do you think 50 overs ODI will survive the onslaught of franchise cricket?
So, I mean, I really do. I think once you start reducing opportunities for people to watch the game at all different levels, then I think you'll end up with such sameness. I like watching T20 cricket, but I don't want too much of it. I like ice cream, but I don't want too much of it. I think variety is a great thing. Now, whether money talks, I guess, in the end, doesn't it? If that's where all the money is, that's where the broadcasting rights go. That's where the Indian money goes. I don't know. I don't even know whether there are 50 over tournaments in India. Are there? I honestly don't know the answer to that. But India are doing very well without that. I think if you want just briefly to go back to England, one of the reasons that England have done badly here is because I think they just assumed that getting the band back together again, and they could just play all the old hits without any new ones, and that's kind of what happened. They found that they can't. You're 4 years on; they're all 4 years older, and preparation for a tournament is is key. I think one of the things that India did manage to do, and the other Asian countries, you had some tournaments in Asia to prepare for it, which England didn't have.
Well, that's an interesting. But the answer, will it survive?
Yes, I think so. I think there's an ICC imperative for the competitions as well. And as well as the World Cup, you've got Champions Trophy as well. So, which England have managed to qualify for.
Yeah, but there are talks going on that it's going to be compressed and catapulted into a 20-over affair. But if that happens, there'll be a sad day for ODI fans like us, the old-timers. But one quick word from David Brooks. David, our in-house expert, a man who's been with us for a month and a half, answering all our questions. David, how do we stop the menace and the thinking of Mark Nicholas and his colleagues, the big boy exclusive club? You've got to unmute yourself. David, we can't hear you. There seems to be some problems. Can we hear you?
I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, quickly, before we wrap up, we're going to go on to Tasneem. Just your word on Mark Nicholas and the big boys group.
Mark Nicholas was flying a kite. It's his first pronouncement as president of the MCC. And he has a duty to, make sure he's reflecting the views of members such as myself or the cricket committee. And I'm not sure he did. I'm not sure there has been an MCC position on this. He made an announcement saying that, in his view, ODI, bilateral ODI, should only take place in World Cup years. Now, that would decimate prospects for associate nations and would greatly harm those nations like West Indies looking to get back into the World Cup. They've already been excluded from the Champions Trophy. We didn't know that beforehand. Matthew Mott, the England coach, said he didn't know that this top 8 places qualified for the Champions Trophy. Joss Buttler seemed to know about it, but Matthew Mott didn't. So look, hopefully there's a lot more debate, and let's hope the fans get asked their view. See, I don't know any cricketers who like to come off bowling after 4 overs and that's it. I don't know any cricketers who really love the game, who are happy with a quick 20 or a 4-over spell. It's nothing. Cricket, you sit down, you're there for the day, it's part of the fun. Yes, there's a place for all forms of cricket, and I'm a huge T20 fan as well, but we must protect 3 formats and stop the incursion, stop the attacks on the 50-over game, which ends up being an attack on the international game. Because the more franchise cricket people play, the less international cricket is being played. And I would say that India now, having the power, the base of international cricket, there's a responsibility with that power to ensure that the other nations get looked after, and that India should take the lead in supporting first-class cricket and 50-over cricket in other nations, that ultimately India need opposition that's going to challenge them.
Well, absolutely. Thank you. That was David Brooks, who was our in-house expert. We also had David Selvey for the first time, Mike Selvey of The Guardian to join us, and also Tasneem Granger, who's been with us. Thank you very much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.